Okay, let's begin. A very warm welcome to this first talking the Buddhist Forum series, sponsored by the Center sponsored by the Geluk Foundation, but it's for the Center of Buddhist Studies at SOAS, which and I'm organizing this series for the Center of Buddhist Studies. I'm Christian Lutzenitz, Senior Lecturer in Tibetan and Indian and Tibet Buddhist art. And it's our great pleasure to welcome Mao Iguchi. Mao Iguchi is Associate Professor of the Haraki Center for Advanced Research and the Graduate School of Letters at Kyoto University in Japan. And she received her PhD at Botany University in 2008. And we are fortunate that she is currently visiting scholar at Walton College in Oxford, which made it possible for us to bring her here. Her main expertise is in the early history of Tibet, post-imperial period, so early medieval period, especially Kadampa history, as we will hear in talk, but also relationship to Karakoto and Karakoto sources. And she also worked on Japanese scholarship in on Tibetan history, and just yesterday an article was published of Japanese research on post-imperial Tibet, medieval and Buddhist history in Cahiers d'Extrême, volume 33. So that just came out yesterday. Yes, warm welcome. And
Thank you so much for kind introduction, Christian. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Mao Iguchi. I'm from Kyoto University. And thank you so much for having me today. First of all, I would like to thank to Professor Christian Lutzenitz and Buddhist Forum for inviting me and giving me such a wonderful opportunity. Also, I'm very happy to share part of my research with all of you today. So before I get into the point, I would like to give you a little background on my research as it relates to today's topic. Can you hear me? My voice is too weak sometimes. As all of you know, since the 2008 Beijing Olympics, fieldwork in Tibet have become very difficult, and the costs have also increased. I have been conducting research in the Tibetan area, particularly on Kadampa monasteries, since 2003. However, since 2008, I have recently shifted to manuscript research, as it has become more and more difficult to conduct research in Tibet every year. I have been studying post-imperial period of Tibetan history from the 9th to 13th centuries. As you know, the period is called Silpuka in Tibetan, and is the beginning of the second division of Buddhism from India to Tibet, Chitar. Currently, I'm particularly interested in manuscripts from this period, since many manuscripts of the same period have been discovered, such as the text from the fifth Dalai Lama's secret library from Lhasa, Puri manuscripts from the border with Nepal, Karakoto manuscripts from present Inner Mongolia, and Matu manuscripts from Ladakh. I also gave a presentation on these manuscripts at the previous IELTS in Prague. However, next year I plan to publish a book based on my doctoral dissertation, Post-Teikoku no Tibet Sekai, Post-Imperial Period in Tibet, published from Rinsen Publisher, Kyoto, So I am reviewing my previous research, and I am also re-examining the Kadampa monasteries that I will be discussing today. Regarding to my fieldwork in Tibet, at that time I was a graduate student at Otani University, Kyoto, and at the same time studied at the Tibet University in Lhasa. I was visiting Kadampa monasteries, especially in central Tibet. As I will explain later, Kadampa monasteries in central Tibet were concentrated in Penyul, Lunsho, Meto, and Turun areas, many of which still remain. As shown in the map on the slide, many of the places could be reached in a day trip from Lhasa. And I visited regularly for research in a small car with one driver. Then, from 2005 to 2007, I was fortunate to be able to stay in Lhasa for an extended period of time and was able to conduct research on Kadampa monasteries in Kadampa as well as in central Tibet. Today I will not mention on the monasteries related Kadampa in Denmark, but we know from Tibetan texts that there are places in Denmark where Domtompa, the founder of the Geluk School, studied before meeting Atisha. And I visited those places. Denmark is in Sichuan province in the current administrative division, bordering Qinghai and TAR. And at the time in 2007, it took about 3 days starting from Chengdu. Domtompa's teacher named Setsun and Smriti Jnana Kirti, Indian Pandita, were in Denmark. Anyway, most of my field work in Tibet was before 2008, a very fortunate time. I visited Lhasa almost every year after that and before COVID. But those were short stays. Most of the information in this presentation is based on research conducted during that time. So let's see today's main topic. Today I'm going to talk like this. 1, introduction, purpose of this study. 2, basic sources for Kadam history. 3, changes of early Kadam monastery, Lo Gompa. 4, the networks between Kadam monasteries. The post-imperial period, which has long been the subject of my research, was a time of many transformations. Chie Nakane, a Japanese anthropologist who was the first woman to become professor of the University of Tokyo, actually she was visiting scholar at SOAS for 1 year in 1960s. Nakane pointed out in her presentation titled Tibet After the Fall of the Tibetan Empire at the conference of the Historical Society in Japan in 1952, in which she describes the post-imperial period as a turning point in every sense of the word from ancient Tibet. Also, this period is called the Tibetan Renaissance by Davidson, 2005, because it was the second diffusion of Buddhism from India to Tibet, which resulted in many translations and the establishment of Tibet's own schools. This period clearly laid the foundation for Tibetan Buddhism or Tibetan culture that continued to the present day. However, the Tibetan Buddhist system as it exists today, such as Tulku, reincarnation lamas, had not yet begun. and the authority of the descendants of the empire remained strong. For example, the kingdom of Gugepuran in Western Tibet, the kingdom of Kuntang, also in Western Tibet, and the Yarlunjo family in Central Tibet were established by imperial descendants. Therefore, to study this period is to understand the major flow of Tibetan history in its transition from the empire or descendants of the empire to a society centered on the truths. It is also to reconfirm what has been lost or reshaped in the process of that change. It is with these research interests that I have been working on the transition and the lost network of Kadampa monasteries that I will discuss today. So, basic sources on Kadam history, Kadam Chunjuns. The following are the 6 works of Kadam Chunjun that are currently available. They were written after the 15th century. As the earliest Kadam Chunjun, it was written by the Geluk master Sonam Hewanpo in 1484. The second one, Yeshitsemo's Kadam Chunjun, was written in the same year, in 1484. Sonam Hewanpo in 1484. The second one, Ishitsumo's Kadam Chunjun, was written in the same year, 1484. This Yeshitsumo's Kadam Chunjun was not available for a long time, but the manuscript is in the Potala Palace and became available for the first time in 2015 when it was published. The third one, it was written by a Kadampa master, Kagyupa master, Rechen Kunga Genzen, in 1494. The fourth one was written by the Gerupa master, Penchen Sonam Takpa, known as the 15th Ganden Tipa, and the ordination Kempo for the third Dalai Lama in 1529. The fifth one was written by the Sakyapa master, Ameshap Ngawan Kunga Sonam, in 1634. Then the last one was written by the preceptor of the 8th Dalai Lama, Yonjin Yeshe Genzen, in 1787. Besides this, Tunka Rinpoche mentions on the presence of the unavailable text, Upalose's work as Kadam Chunjun. Basically, the structure of the Kadam Chunjun is like the following. Overview of Buddhism in India, overview of Buddhism in Tibet, Atisha's biography, Tomtompa's biography, other Kadampa masters' biographies, and Gerupa masters' biographies. Generally, the Kadam history was written after the rise of the Gerupa school, so biographies of Gerupa masters are included. Among Kadam Chunjun, the work of Yeshitsemo, Rechen, Ameshap, and Yeshe Genzen are a sort of biographical. These 4 texts have very similar structure. On the other hand, the work of Hewanpo and Sonam Takpa are not so biographical. The 2 texts also states the biography of masters, but focuses more each subject and textual lineage. As you know, there are many Kadampa-related texts now, such as the texts from the secret library of the 5th Dalai Lama, Depu Monastery, but there are very few historical or biographical texts. Therefore, these Kadam Chunjun texts are still important. As other scholars have pointed out, I also think that Kadam Chunjun Sebe Drome by Rechen Kunga Genzen is particularly important among these. The author, Rechen Kunga Genzen, studied at Setan Monastery in Hoka area. Setan Monastery was a Kagyupa monastery at that time, but later changed to Gelukpa. There are 4 publications for same block print now. This block print is a large work consisting of 400 to 17 folios. According to the colophon of the text, the wood block was established by the order of the 5th Dalai Lama. For this text, Japanese scholar Hakuyu Hadano, Tohoku University, he had studied on this text quite early in 1956. Because the block print is kept at the library of Tohoku University, which was brought by Tokan Tada in the early 20th century. Tokan Tada stayed in Lhasa for 10 years from 1912 and received the Geshe degree from Sela Monastery. Most of the Tibetan texts at Tohoku University Library, including Delge Kangyur and Tengyur, were brought by him. This is Tokan Tada's photo. So as you mentioned, just recently, actually this month, a collection of articles on Tibetan studies in Japan was published in FAO's journal. And this photo of Tada was used for the cover of the volume. I have also written an article titled Japanese Research on Post-Imperial Tibet, Medieval and Buddhist History. I mentioned on Hadano's research on Kadam Chunjun in this article. Hadano used this block print edition to conduct research. He points out the similarities between Rechen's work and the section of the Kadam history in the Teptergompo by Gorozawa Shonnupel. Hadano also points out a master-disciple relationship between Shonnupel and Rechen Kunga Genzen. Actually, Rechen Kunga Genzen studied under Gorozawa Shonnupel and quoted from Teptergompo. Rechen Kunga Genzen calls Go Shonnupel as Isan Tsepa, and Rechen often mentions Isan Tsepa in the Kadam Chunjun Sebe Romme. Hadano translated the Kadam history in the Teptergompo into Japanese, and he laid the basis of the Kadam study. Hadano points out Rechen's Kadam history is the best historical text on the Kadampa school, which can respond to our request because it is a comprehensive, systematical, and detailed instruction on the school. As Hadano pointed out, the Kadam Chunjun of Rechen Kunga Genzen contains a large amount of information, with 177 biographies of Kadampa masters and 48 biographies of Gelukpa masters, far more than any other text. So 3 changes of early Kadampa monastery, Lo Gompa. Among the disciples of Domtompa, Potowa, Puchumpa, and Chengapa, who were the 3 prime disciples of Domtompa and are referred to as Kumchesum, each founded a monastery in the Penyul area. Potowa founded Potogompa, Puchumpa founded Puchun, and Chengapa founded Lo Gompa. Like most other Kadampa monasteries, Potogompa is currently an Anigompa, nunnery. Puchun is not extant. there is only ruins of a stupa, but Lhasa remains as one of the few relatively large-scale monasteries. Disciples of Domtompa subsequently founded a number of monasteries, especially in the Penyul area. Penyul or Pembo is the area around present-day Hundup zone, but historically Penyul covered a larger area than it does today. The name Penyul first appeared in the Tumpan text, PT 1287, where it is written that the place called Ngebo changed its name to Penyul. Behind the present status is the fact that external pressures forced most Kadampa monasteries to undergo a series of constant changes until the present. In the 13th century, some monasteries were caught up in a power struggle between schools. At the same time, some Kadampa monasteries were destroyed by Mongolian army. Then Kadampa monasteries changed their sectarian affiliation. Most changed to Kadam Sarma, that is Gelupa, or partly changed to Sakyapa. And finally, in the 12th century, during the Cultural Revolution, most Kadampa monasteries faced near complete destruction. Besides this, as a common characteristic of present Kadampa monasteries, almost all of existent Kadampa monasteries are now relatively small scale. Among them, some monasteries totally unknown to local people. The great scholar of 12th century in Tibet, Gendun Chubel, also refers to this in his work Selki Dhamma. Before densa sum of Geluk School, Sela Drepung Ganden, there were 6 great monasteries, the so-called Densa Tuk. All of these 6 monasteries related to Kadampa school, which attracted remarkable scholars from Densa Tuk. Indeed, the monastic curriculum leading up to the present day has been systematized there. But despite Densa Tuk's proud history, the present-day Densa Tuk does not have much of a presence. For example, among Densa Tuk, Sampu Neutok, which is located at present-day Chushu zone, had been central to logic in Tibet. However, there is now only one small hall, and only few monks reside there. There is a large Sakya monastery in Penyul, Narendra, and it seems that Sampu Neutok has a close relationship with Narendra and is currently a Sakya school. By the way, thanks to recent SNS, I got very recent picture of the monastery from a monk of Sampu Neutok. These are the photos shown in the slide. The monastery has been renovated since I visited in 2005. Also, another of the Densa Tuk, Surupu, located at present-day Chushu zone, we can see only the ruins of huge monastery. I didn't know where Surupu was for many years, but Karmadere, former director of the Pelzek Institute and editor of the Depun Monastery catalog, and Kadam Sumbun took me there in 2010. The surprisingly large grounds give a hint that it was once a large monastery. The curious thing is that it is not clear why and when the above changes came about Surupu and Kadampa monasteries. Moreover, not a few Kadampa monasteries changed to an Anigompa, Nandi. To give a few examples, Lhasa Hakan, founded by the famous translator Patapunimatak, changed to an Anigompa. Shagompa, founded by Shalawa, a disciple of Photowa, also became a Nandi. Tukendupta explains the reason for such changes as one Dakini implicated the Kadampa monasteries. In contrast, Lo Gompa, I will be discussing here, is a relatively large-scale monastery that has continued to exist as a monastery with origins in the Geluk School. Lo Gompa, which is located in present-day Taksezon, was founded by Chengapa Tsultimbar, who is a direct disciple of Domtompa and often known as Damngapa, when the Kadampa is divided into 2 or 3 groups. Chengapa was born in Yen, Nanragang, Penyul area, and at the age of 18, ordained under Mer Sherab Semba, disciple of Atisha, at Chatok Monastery, Turun. At the end of 25, Chengapa met with Domtompa at Radin Monastery. He had been thinking of going to Bodh Gaya in India, but after meeting Domtompa, he decided to stay in Tibet. He passed away at the Nyukurum Monastery, Lunshu, which was founded by his disciple Nyukurum Pachenpo. Like all other Kadampa monasteries, it changed its sectarian affiliation from Kadampa to Gelukpa. When I was doing my research around by 2010, around 50 monks reside there. Because Lo Gompa faced near complete destruction during the Cultural Revolution, all existing buildings in Lo Gompa have been repaired since the 1980s. Lo Gompa consists of 2 main buildings, Uzekon, which can be traced back to the period of its founder Chengapa, and Uzeme, which was founded at the end of 12th century by Sampa Jose, the 9th abbot of Lo Gompa. Uzekon was further repaired between 2007 and 2009, and now looks like this. Uzeme was completely destroyed and left as it was, but it was repaired in 2009. In addition, the history of Lo Gompa was written by a current monk of Lo Gompa named Rodu Samtem, and although it has not been published, it was possible to obtain a copy of it at Lo Gompa during my fieldwork. And I was also able to meet the author. According to this unpublished history of the monastery, it seems that there was once a college, Tazan, at Lo Gompa. When the 11th abbot, Kamparumpa, founded Kyamme, Tazan, in the 13th century, then the 16th abbot, Sangye Wompo Shonnu Monram, founded 3 Tazan, Kon, Kammochie, and Chamba in the 14th century. During Sonam Hewampo, the 3 Tazan were integrated into 1 Tazan in the 15th century. At Lo Gompa involves not only the building, but also what goes on inside. Rituals and religious events, which were stopped by the Cultural Revolution, were restarted in 1985. They now play host to various events throughout the year. Among them, there are 2 large religious events. One is Lo Kuku, which is held on June 15 and 16 of the Tibetan calendars. It was restarted in 2001. A large tanka called the Kuku, depicting Tisha, is displayed at the day. This Rokuku was suspended for a long time after the end of the Cultural Revolution, but was finally resumed in 2001. This large tanka is normally kept in a special storage room at Utsekon and is only displayed once a year. According to the modern writing of history of Logompa, it is said that there were originally two kuku. One was a large tanka of the 16 arhats, Netenchutu, which was made during the time of the 11th abbot, Kamparumpa, in the 13th century, and the other was a tanka of Maitreya, Chamba, which was made during the time of the 35th abbot, the 10th Rosemba, Tupten Ninche Takpa Gyamtso, in the 19th century. Also, in recent years, Achehamo, Tibetan opera, is performed the following day on the 16th. The other is Namkan Chupa, which is held at the end of November in the Tibetan calendar. It was restarted in 1993. Especially Namkan Chupa is quite famous because it is one of Lhasa Chonga, the 5 main religious offerings in Lhasa. Currently, the event attracts a number of people from around Lhasa every year. During the Namkan Chupa, a masked dance ceremony, Cham, is held at the monastery. I heard from a monk at Logompa that this event had been restarted after they invited monks from before the Cultural Revolution to teach them how to play the instruments. So while most of the Kadampa monasteries declined, why has Logompa been able to be reconstructed after the Cultural Revolution and to maintain its stability until the present? I believe there are 2 factors behind this, and I clarified them in Iuchi 2010. One is Turku, and the other is its branch temple. Regarding the first factor, Rosemba Turku, Turku has been associated with Logompa since its changes to the Gerupa. The first Rosemba Rodu Gensen, in the 15th century, is said to have been a disciple of Tsongkhapa. Also, this Turku is said to have been one of the Puki Turku Namsum, the great 3 Turku of Tibet. Although it is a little known fact on the successive Rosemba from the available sources, after the death of the 5th Dalai Lama, Deshi Sangye Gyamtso sent a successive Rosemba, possibly the 7th Rosemba, Lobsang Nyenta Gyamtso, to Mongolia in place of the 5th Dalai Lama. Also, in some texts of the Qin dynasty, such as Ta Qing Kuiten, Rosemba's name appears as a Futokuto certified by the dynasty. Anyway, it seems that this successive Rosemba had occupied a political important position. In fact, the current Rosemba, the 14th Rosemba, Tenzin Gyaltsen, was in a religious position in Lhasa as of 2009. Regarding the second factor, Logompa has a branch temple called Chamkam in the north of Parkor. This branch was founded by the first Rosemba Turku in about 1430. Many people, not residents living in Lhasa, but merchants from afar, visit this temple, as it is centrally located even today. The offerings from Chamkan serve as the main source of income for Lo Gompa. Although it has nothing to do with the Kadampa, Chamkan has Dukpa Kunre's Chamkan and Sompo Nobu Sampo's Dunten. So it is a place of worship for Dukpa Kunre and Sompo Nobu Sampo, and is visited by merchants and others. This is the present Chamkan, and this is the Chamba in Chamkan, called Chamba Tomsi, because this Chamba is looking towards Tomsikan in Lhasa. However, during the Kadampa period, in contrast, the circumstances of Lo Gompa were quite different. Kadam Chujun Sebe Drumme and also Teptel Gompo provide some details. According to these two sources, the primary branch monastery of Lo Gompa was not its present branch Chamkan, but Chayuru Gompa, which was built in 1114 by Chayuru Bashonu, a direct disciple of Chengapa. Chayurpa was born in Turung area and ordained at Satok Gompa, Satok Monastery in Turung. He studied under Chengapa and Turumpa. The present Chayuru Gompa, which is also called Manragon, it is located in Metro Konkar. It is a little way from Lo Gompa. Interestingly, Chayuru Gompa was not just a branch monastery of Lo Gompa, but the successive abbots of Lo Gompa concurrently assumed the position of abbot at Chayuru Gompa. In contrast with present status of Lo Gompa, this former branch, Chayuru Gompa, is quite a small monastery which has some financial difficulties. When I did field work there in around 2010, monks in Chayuru Gompa are farming as part of their regular day. The details of the successive abbots of Lo Gompa during Kadam period can be found in the Kadam Chunjun Sebe Domme, and the successive abbots of Geluk period can be found in the unpublished Lo Gompa's history written by modern monk. According to them, the current abbot of Lo Gompa is the 51st. The table of the successive abbots of Lo Gompa that I created before is available on the website of the Tibetan Himalayan Library, University of Virginia. According to the Sebe Domme, the abbots of Lo Chayuru came together during the time of the fifth abbot, Tsampa Doji Genzen, in the 12th century, and during the time of the 16th abbot, Sangye Wompo, there were 3,600 monks, which was a peak period in the 13th century. This is the background of the Chayuru Monastery. Although its dgon, the assembly hall, was repaired in 1984, this area is still left in ruins around in 2010. The curious thing is that there is no interchange between Lo Gompa and Chayuru Gompa at the present. Although it is not clear when the abbotship was made separate, the relation between the two monasteries had gradually disappeared. Nowadays, most of the monks of these monasteries do not know about this former deep relation. The changes from Kadampa period to the Geluk period are as shown in the slide. the present status allowing Logompa to maintain economic stability is caused by the changes after Gelukpa. Nowadays, the monks of Logompa go to Lo Monastery to study Peja. In the Vaidurya Selpo by Deshi Sangye Gyamso, it is stated that the monks of Logompa study exoteric Buddhism at Depun Roselin or Selache, and that they went to the Gyutu to study esoteric Buddhism. Anyway, the presence of a Turku and its related branch monastery has become a factor for maintaining the monastery. As we all know, the Turku system has dominated Tibetan society, not only in religion, but also in politics. Therefore, Logompa was exceptionally able to follow the course of history through the presence of its Turku. 4. Networks between Kadampa monasteries. Similarly, according to the Kadam Chunjun Sebe Dome, Chayul Gompa is not the only monastery that had a deep relation with Logompa. Along with Chayul Gompa, during its Kadampa period, Logompa developed an extensive network of branch monasteries through lineage connections. So now let's a closer look at the networks of monasteries during Kadam period. Here is a part of the monasteries that belong to same group of Logompa and Chayul Gompa. There were a number of monasteries related to Logompa and Chayul Gompa. Among them, I will pick up some monasteries with a particularly deep historical connection to two monasteries. One is Chatok Monastery, Chatok Gompa, founded by Mersherab Semba, who was a disciple of Atisha. Although we do not know much about this monastery and the founder, but it is where both Chengapa and Chayulpa ordained. Nyukrum Gompa, founded by Nyukrum Pachembo, who was a disciple of Chengapa, also known as one of the teachers of Gampopa, is located in Lunsho area. Chengapa spent his final years here, and he called this place Nge Roje De Inno, it is my Bodhigaya. Also, the 16th abbot of Rochayul, Shonu Monram, stayed at this monastery for 9 years as an abbot. As you can see in the photo, all that remains of the Nyukrum is the ruins of the monastery. The picture I show you here is recent picture. These were provided by the former director of Petsek, Kamadere. Geten Gompa, Geten Monastery, founded by Drugom Chembo, Wanchuk Genzen, who was a disciple of Chayulpa, is located in metro area. The 6th abbot of Rochayul, Sangye Wompo, stayed at this monastery for a long time as an abbot. Also, the 8th abbot of Rochayul, Rinpoche Shonu Yeshe, ordained here and stayed for 5 years as an abbot. Then the 19th abbot of Rochayul, Chuki Doje, stayed here for 28 years as an abbot. Chendu Gompa, founded by Turumpa Rinchen Nimbo, who was one of the 3 prime disciples of Chengapa in 1103, was located in Turun area. The 13th abbot of Rochayul, Sangyejo, stayed at this monastery for 9 years as an abbot. Geye Gompa, founded by Geye Chanchup U, disciples of Chayulpa, was located in Tushur area. The 14th abbot of Rochayul, Sangye Tompa, ordained here. The details of both Sendo Gompa and Geye Gompa are unknown, and it was not known whether they still exist. So when we map out the monasteries that are closely related to Lo and Chayu, it looks like this. I have already explained about the Penyul area. Of course, Penyul is an important location for important place for Kadampa monasteries. However, other areas are also very important as locations for Kadampa monasteries or as a birthplace of Kadampa masters. Among them, Lunshu area is also an important area for Kadampa monasteries, and a wide area that includes dgon from the upper reaches of the Kichu River. Tunkan Rinpoche mentions that it is in areas such as Urutu, which is upstream from Kichu in Lhasa, and explains that it also includes areas such as Radin Gompa, Radin Monastery, Dikun, Utu, and Meto Konkar. I think that the extent to which it includes these areas differs depending on the period, so we need to think about it a little more, but it is certainly a very large area. Also, Meto is the area of the present-day Meto Konkar to the east of Lhasa. Tushu is probably in Hodak area because there is description of Hoda Tushu in the Kadam Chunjun Sebe Dome. Turun is the area of the present-day Turun de Jenzon, but I think it is larger area than the current administrative division. Interestingly, there are many Kadampa monasteries in these areas, with the exception of Lhasa. And it can be seen that the Lo Chayur networks was also initially widely developed in this area as well. Then after that, monasteries and temples were founded one after another by the disciples of Chengapa and Chayupa. If we write down the temples established by the disciples of Chengapa and the temples established by the disciples of Chayupa, it will be as shown on the slide. The monasteries and temples Chatok, Sendo, Nyukrum, and Geten mentioned above were closely associated with the disciples of Chengapa and Chayupa, as well as with successive abbots of Lo Chayu. But there are no detailed descriptions of the relationship between these monasteries or temples in the Kadam Chunjun Sebe Dome. Therefore, it is not known to what extent there was interaction between the temples and what kind of relationships they had. Again, when we plot on the map the monasteries founded by the disciple of Chengapa and Chayupa, it can be seen that most of them are around Lo Chayur, that is, in Lunshu and metro area. So again, as I mentioned earlier, during the time of Kadampa, many monasteries were founded and there was a rich network of monasteries. The basis of this network was characterized by the lineage of teachings and the master-disciple relationship. This is thought to have disappeared later with the emergence of Tuku and the changes to the Gerupa or other schools. There's something missing. Sorry. Now, I would like to summarize. The network of monasteries seen during the Kadampa period has now disappeared, but it is possible to trace it through texts. In this talk, we have only looked at the example of Lo, but by looking at the relationships between other Kadampa monasteries, we should be able to get a clearer picture of the situation in central Tibet during the post-imperial period or the beginning of Chital. Now that new materials such as the texts of the fifth Dalai Lama have become available, it is necessary to look again at the existing texts such as Kadam Chunjung with a fresh eye. Among the Kadampa monasteries, Lo was able to survive by adapting to the subsequent social and religious systems of Tibet centered on the Turku. I hope to contribute to a multifaceted understanding of Tibetan history by clarifying what has disappeared and what has changed from over the course of Tibetan history. So that's all. Thank you so much for your attention.